Let me tell you something. Trading is tough. Very tough. Not everyone wins, okay? Futures trading involves substantial risk, tremendous risk, huge risk. And you can lose money, real money. Past performance doesn't mean anything about future results. Believe me, only trade what you could afford to lose. Do your own research. Get professional advice if you need it. This is for educational purposes only. We're just sharing ideas, not guarantees. Smart people manage risk. Great traders respect it. No members of DS Capital were harmed in the making of this video. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back everybody to another weekly Crude Outlook video. Rob is not with us today, but he did tell me that he would be posting his scenarios and ideas once the Sunday Open happens. So let's just get right into it and just take a look at what happened last week and what we are expecting. So last week, let's look at this chart. So last week, the Sunday Open was right around these highs. It was right around, I want to say 64, 68. And then immediately the market did end up, moving lower. This pretty much left this balance. So if you watched last week's video, I did talk about this, how this balance would be a pretty key reference point. Now the market didn't exactly open where I expected, and it didn't trade in a way that I had planned. But once the market broke through this distribution, you could sort of bet on the shorts and then see where it goes. And overall, what it did end up doing is it just filled in this low volume area. So this area, between this area, pretty much it just filled it in, and we can see that within the profile. And we did end up basing towards these lows. So this market did end up basing. This was early in the week. I believe this was on Monday. There was an attempt to break lower on Tuesday that got rejected, and then the market did end up just reversing higher, coming in, testing the prior weekly point of control, finding our sellers, and then just moving right back into the balance. So overall, last week, fairly balanced profile. There's not too much to add to it. We do have sort of this low volume area, and then we do have another low volume area here and here. Let's see those prices. So we have one at 63.90s, one at 62.65s, and then a little bit, this one's a little bit larger, low volume area at 64.70s, I want to say. This was also an inside week. We can see that value is overall holding within the prior weekly range. So value did not move higher, it did not move lower, it simply just stayed within prior value. So overall, decent acceptance going on over here. Now, based on the information that we have, what am I expecting moving forward? So I do think that this area that we have beneath us, let's just put this. So I do think that this area we have beneath us is a pretty solid structure. I mean, the fact that the market moved lower, had all this volume traded, attempted to continue, but instead just failed and then traded higher, that to me, is something that I sort of want to pay attention to. Now, let's just zoom in and then actually redraw that. Another thing that we have is on the daily time frame, the market is actually time framing down. So the market is printing lower lows on the daily time frame. So one of my scenarios is for that structure to hold and then for the market to end up rotating higher. And the reason for that is just because, one, like I said, it's in balance. So taking trades around extremes for a possible move higher. So what this could look like is the market simply just rotates lower. It's able to either hold this low, so we fail to take it out, and then the market starts to shift higher. There's some sort of structure, and then the market rotates higher, and targets is obviously going to be watching what we do at this low volume area. If the market breaches this low volume area, then we're going to be watching for some sort of breakout above the prior weekly high. If that is able to continue, we then have the high at 66.48, and then beyond 66.48, there is a price action sort of structure, which is way up here at the 69s. So that would just be something I would watch the market gravitate towards. And that's just, like I said, just a price action structure. That's one variation of the scenario. The second variation would be, the market may test a little bit lower, meaning it may test this high volume area of this distribution before rotating higher. That's just another variation of the long. And like I said, watching extremes for a possible fade, for a possible continuation in the overall sort of move higher. Now, what about a short? So if we are trading the short, pretty much just watching the exact opposite. So let's change this. So, and this is also assuming that we opened where we close, which I don't think that would be the case. It's really dependent on where the market opens. But, assuming that the market just opens, we check this low volume area. We can see that we do have multiple sort of tops around this area. So, and this is throughout the last few sessions, which is why it is, a low volume area, just because sellers clearly stepped in and then buyers were just unable to clear that area. So the market would check higher, it would sort of hold that area, and then we would move lower. Targets for the downside is just going to be one, back to the VPOC, and then back to this high volume area, which this is coming from this distribution. And then if this is able to continue to the downside, we have the second high volume area, which is way back here around looks like it's around the 60s. And then we also have an RTH gap that's still open. So that's what my downside targets look like. So if the market checks higher, holds against that low volume area, and then we see a possible continuation lower. Now, I do also want to note that it is good to be mindful of the high and low of the week, just because it is an inside week. There is some sort of acceptance going on. If the market breaks through the high or breaks through the low with either some sort of aggression that creates a low volume area, or we can see participants stepping up, that may indicate a break in the opposite direction. And on the flip side, if we see a break in that direction, so if we see a break of the high or a break of the low, but there's a lack of new interest coming in, so if we break the low, there's a lack of new selling interest, then it could just be a simple fade back to VPOC. Same thing with the high. If we break the high, there's a lack of new buyers stepping in, then it just could be a simple reversion trade back to the VPOC. So that's what I have for this week. Like I said, this is really dependent on where the market opens, and with the news flows, we've been seeing recently, this could open way up here, it could open way down here. So it's like I said, it's dependent on where the market opens. That's all I have to cover for this week. If you guys do want to see what Rob is posting and just also want to check out the Discord, we do have a Discord me and Rob launched, and we got some good stuff in there. I believe Rob is still planning to do the live commentary, but we share our ideas in there. And overall, for now, this is a free to join server, so if you guys are interested, check it out just to see what it is we're doing. If it's something you're interested in, stick around. If not, I guess it's cool if you guys leave. It's we're not forcing you guys to stay. And I believe that's all I had to cover. So hope you guys enjoyed. Like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.